She has a very powerful testimony to share with us about the dignity of women and the dignity of life and how they go hand in hand. And above all, her story is a shining example of how, in the depths of human suffering and sorrow, God's mercy is real, and it's healing, and it's transformative. So everyone, please welcome Yvonne Seeman.
As a woman, I believed for many years that my life was limited by my lack of education. However, having attended the University of Hard Knocks at the age of 16, I have come to understand that although education is very empowering, it does not compare nor replace the experiences I have endured and I have made to this day. Through my losses of not having a father growing up, because he was incarcerated at Joliet State Penitentiary for 23 years, 5 unplanned pregnancies from 16 to 20, which resulted all in abortions, dropping out of high school and getting a GED, living on the streets homeless for a year, joining a religious occult for 5 years, 2 failed marriages, dysfunctional relationships with both men and women, drugs, alcohol, and verbal abuse, along with domestic violence, I have come to understand this powerful truth. My pain and suffering was not in vain. Today, God has given me the courage to take control of my life and use my past experiences for the empowerment of other women by teaching them how to take back their power and control over their destiny, their bodies, and their dignity. I ended up in the emergency room. When I arrived in the emergency room, I was asked what was going on, and I said to the nurse that I was hemorrhaging, and the hemorrhage wouldn't stop. And she asked me, well, what do you think it is? And I said, well, I had an abortion 3 days earlier, and that I had had other abortions before, but that this had never happened. And I remember her looking at me with this really strange look on her face, kind of like the ones that I'm seeing right now. And she said, well, how many abortions have you had? And I remember thinking to myself, that is the strangest question ever. Because abortion was a legal procedure. I didn't understand why she was asking me the question. And I remember I looked at her and I said to her, well, this is my 5th abortion. She then said to me that they would have to run some tests. And I said, fine. So they ran some tests, and after they ran some tests, she came back into the room and she said to me that they had not removed the baby completely, and that half the baby was still inside me, and that was causing the hemorrhage. I remember when she delivered the news, I looked over at the woman and I said to her, what baby are you talking about? This is a blob of tissue, some cells. There's no baby here. And she realized immediately what her medical terminology was supposed to be, and she started changing the verbiage. However, at that point and at that moment, choice was revealed for the first time. And at that moment, I realized for the first time that what had really happened and what I was missing for the 4.5 years prior to that abortion and the void in my life, it all started making sense. And I realized for the first time that I had been given the legal right to end the lives of 5 of my children. As a post-abortive woman, both pro-choice and pro-life advocates look at me as a failure. Pro-choice advocates want me to be silent on this issue because abortion is a billion-dollar industry. If women like me start talking, maybe people will change their hearts and minds, and abortion will be exposed for what it truly is. Some pro-lifers believe I deserve to live with the pain of the truth. Today, the pain their death once caused is giving others the strength to accept God's mercy and forgiveness and the freedom to embrace life and live again. It is time to talk about the facts. Fact: As a woman who visited Planned Parenthood 5 times, I never met a doctor. I was put on the lowest dose of the birth control pill, and I was given the highest dose of a 30-day antibiotic. I was told that I could begin sex activity after 3 days, and I was never told that that antibiotic would cancel out that pill. Fact, abortion kills the life of a baby before it begins. That's a direct quote from Planned Parenthood's pamphlet in August of 1963 when they were desperately promoting the pill. Fact, abortion carries a lifetime of consequences that affect women emotionally, physically, psychologically, and spiritually. Planned Parenthood versus Casey in a U.S. Supreme Court decision, Planned Parenthood states that if a woman is not told about the abortions of the fetus, there will be serious psychiatric aftermath. Fact, abortion hurts both women and men. It takes two to make a baby. Many men feel guilty and shame for pressuring women, and those who wanted to be fathers, their rights were criminally taken away. Fact, abortion is not a conservative agenda, people. It's not. Let's get ourselves educated on this issue, okay? Because according to the Gays Against Abortion, known as PLAVA, Pro-Life Alliance of Gays and Lesbians, formed in 1991, a very liberal organization, okay? This is their statement. We acknowledge that from conception, the fetus is a human being entitled to basic rights, including the right to life. We hold that abortion denies that right and destroys that human being. Fact, Planned Parenthood never gave me information regarding the consequences of my choice, nor did I ever talk to a doctor. In all other medical procedures, we are given information, we have a consultation with a doctor. We go through all kinds of things when we're getting a tooth extraction, an ingrown toenail. For crying out loud, if you take your dog to the vet nowadays, it's 3 pages. And they want to know everything that's wrong with your dog. Are they peeing regularly? Are they pooping regularly? Do they sleep regularly? Seriously, before they go into surgery. But yet, we as a society have deemed abortion health care. That this is the best women deserve. And for years, this fight has been the fight. But here's a news flash. When did that woman become 13? And in my wonderful state of Illinois, every time I have to say that, I just want to cringe because of what we've unleashed on everyone. 11, 12, 13-year-old girls can be taken into an abortion clinic by a coach, by an uncle, by a grandfather, by a stepfather. And that abortion can be performed. And nobody needs to call a parent. And if that child dies 3 days later, nobody is legally responsible for that life. Fact, pro-abortion organizations acknowledge that up to 10% of women who have had abortions have serious psychiatric aftermath, which means there is about 5 million women either medicated or in prison. Hello. The whole Hallmark channel started because of abortion. Fact, abortion is a medical procedure that has health risks such as incomplete procedure, blood clots to the uterus, infection to the uterus, hemorrhaging, injury to the cervix, allergic reaction, and finally death. Now, you guys aren't seeing the ambulances that are pulling up to the abortion clinics and grabbing the patient and putting them in the back of that ambulance, dead and driving away. But just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. This whole fight that we don't want to go back to the back alley abortions, those are happening today. In abortion clinics across this nation, many of them under the banner of Planned Parenthood. Because all they ever want to do is just provide women with health care. Now, it's not a popular stand. Doing what I do, very few women will do this because of the judgment. I cannot tell you how many people have judged me, have looked down their noses at me. But the reality is, I serve a God that is absolutely amazing. And when he sent his son to die that brutal death, abortion was not set apart from Calvary. And because of that, I am a child of God. I am a daughter of God. And I have been called with a message. And my voice will be heard. However, like I said, walking into a room full of strangers and looking at the faces that I see sometimes out in the audience, it's not easy. But it's necessary.